in the rest of the cosmos, when these other beings speak through my clients, they will say that the most powerful being is the awakened human, not some other being who's developed like all these different skills. It's the awakened human that's like Shiva, Buddha. That's considered the most powerful being in the universe because we're able to fully embody that, and that's where we're headed at some point. It really means that every limitation we possess comes from our belief systems. If we were to unravel these belief systems one at a time, we could start awakening more of this magic within us. To harness your emotional body is to understand that our emotions act as the gateway through the universe. To really harness our emotions gives us like a golden ticket to like source itself.
Sarah Breskman Cosme, welcome back on Just Tap In. What are you most excited about right now in your life?
Oh my gosh, I'm just so excited about sharing these truths with you. I guess in my life, what I'm most excited about is that this ancient wisdom is making a comeback. It's coming back. It's been hidden for so long. People have died trying to hide it. And no matter what people did to artifacts and places of worship, they can't get rid of our subconscious memories. And this information is resurfacing through people's memories. It's something that no one can take away from us. And it's exciting.
In your recent book, when you were taking a client through the hypnosis technique, founded by Dolores Cannon, I got chills when you brought through the higher self of Sarah, or of the person that you were, Alice. And it said, in a past life, talking to you directly, Sarah, you were a Druid. You recorded the wisdom of your people. Now in this life, you are called to write it down once more so it may never be forgotten. What goes through your mind when you heard that for the first time?
I mean, I know that I want to do this so much. I mean, this is what excites me. I could do this all day, every day, explore the subconscious memories that people have and find these things out. And so it's sort of like shocking, but a part of me kind of knows that this could possibly be true. It's like a knowing and a desire, and it's like a fire behind my passion almost is how it feels.
Yeah. And I think part of the urgency of this information is one of the main things is that humanity has lost its knowledge and its remembrance of their own magic. So what is the magic that is being resurfaced now of humanity that you're finding through your clients and your hypnosis?
There is so much. And one is just that we've forgotten that we are magical creatures, that we can use magic, that there's magic in our cells and DNA. And we're starting to reawaken these things within us. I mean, people have so much power within them. People don't know how to use even their physical temple, their physical body. People don't understand how really to work with nature. I mean, the ancient ways are resurfacing, and people are being called to start work with the ancient ways, but they just don't know what these are because they've forgotten, and they don't know that they're just really free, easy tools that they can use, and they can actually become much more powerful and feel better in their life. And this kind of stuff is free and easy to do.
And the more I've dug in to this type of work, I've realized that time gets a little bit weird where, maybe what we consider the past isn't really something that happened long ago, but it's all happening all at once. So I wanted to ask you, in your research, what have you discovered about time and the notion of past lives that are, happening or happened? What is going on there?
So it's not so much that it's happening in the past, it's happening right now in this now moment. In this now moment, there is so much happening. You just are only focused on your life right now in the present moment in your consciousness. But actually, there are infinite things happening in this now moment that you just don't have awareness of just because you're not focused on it. But how the higher consciousness has explained it to me is that we humans think of like the past, present, like this, like stacked. But they said turn the it's almost like a record. Turn it out sideways and look like this. Like it's happening right now in different layers in front of you almost. So it's not stacked. Turn it out like a record player, like the rings on a record. It's more like that, but your soul splits itself into different fractals to have the most experience and to learn as much as it can. But each fractal has a full experience, has a full life where you're focused on yourself. But these other fractals are also experiencing a life. And in a sense, you will tap into those in the time when you do. Like your consciousness will have a full life in these other fractals as well. And you will be fully conscious involved in those other fractals. But this is all happening in the now. And so other consciousness or other versions of ourselves understand this concept. So at any time, you can have another version of yourself who's fully aware that you also are in these other times. They can visit you as well as future versions of yourself and past versions. And you can tap in to any of these when you develop your mind enough to understand that you can go into these other fractals of your own soul, of your own consciousness, so to speak.
And you're almost like a guide to help people voyage within these different fractals of themselves. And I wanted to ask you there, how do you assist people in tuning or tapping into these different fractals of themselves?
Well, it's very easy. I just bring them to the very deepest level of trance, and then I can speak to their higher consciousness, and I can ask their higher consciousness, what is the most important place for them to see? And it could be anything. It's really easy. I mainly use Dolores Cannon's method, but for the clients that I work with for my job or my research, um, I mainly use my own method for that, and then I'll have something that I'm working on, and I'll they never meet each other, and I'll be able to work on the different levels of consciousness with them to find information.
Hmm. And I know with Dolores Cannon, she worked with the deep theta state in the brain. Have you explored anything beyond the theta state, like the gamma state, when you can take people there, which is even probably deeper and more activating?
That's such a good question. You can actually feel the gamma state if what amazing tool to do that is if you go to Egypt and you can lay in that sarcophagus box or someplace, a megalithic structure, because the components of these structures actually work with your own body chemistry and they amplify your vibration. So if you're focused, if you're in like a deep meditation in one of these places and you're focused on something that is raising your vibration, like gratitude, then it could magnify your vibration so much that you could pop out of your body and explore the other realms and find out a lot of this wisdom. But you can mimic this in a session just by asking the higher self to do this and tell them about it is essentially what's happening in these sessions. They're just all hypnosis is focus concentration. So they're in a very focused state. And while they're in this focused state, they can explore anything. They can explore any realm. There's no limit to consciousness in a focused state.
We are the cosmos and knowledge is infinite. So I can imagine you uncovering this knowing like, oh, we have a lot more to dig up because knowledge is so vast, so infinite.
There's
And
so much.
there's so much.
I mean, it's
One of those
exciting.
things, it is very exciting. One of those things is, I've heard you speak upon that all of us have this free will to create our own timeline. But also there are certain nexus points as a collective and also probably for individuals that trigger different timelines to occur. There's one that you brought up once, which is a potential of a comet tail going in front of the sun,
Hmm.
triggering a solar flash.
Hmm.
What have you uncovered around this event of the nexus point and the timelines that will emerge from it?
Well, what I've been hearing, and I still hear this actually, is that everyone right now has their own timeline. I mean, everyone, basically, it's hard for anyone to tell you this is going to happen because it might be different than your particular belief system. You generate your reality based on what's coming through your eyes and what your deep beliefs are. That actually creates your reality. So it is really important for people to decide what they want to believe in and actually work on their belief systems more than what someone's telling them is the truth. Because what really matters is your own belief system. But everyone's creating their own reality based on their belief system. And they do have free will in that they could change their belief system and they could change what they are taking into their consciousness and what they see as far as the reflection of their inner world around them. They can work with this. Um, but what I've heard is that everybody has their own timeline, reality. It might be completely different than someone that you live with, even. And we're headed for what people call the nexus point. And, there's so many prophecies that are foretelling, have told about this. There's even the Hopi talk about this in people's memories. They were talking about this in, like a long time ago, and we're headed for this nexus point. This is just how the earth and the consciousness goes through the Ascension program, which is like a program. So there are nexus points. There are a lot of nexus points. That the nexus point that we are headed for is something that will happen that will merge these timelines together. So that is like a huge event that would shift the belief system of everyone that is conscious on the planet at the time. And what they've said is there are many potentials for this nexus point. One of the potentials is a comet would pass in front of the sun. And if the tail of the comet is in front of the sun, it may or may not trigger a solar flare. If it triggers a solar flare, the solar activity would dismantle our veil. Now, as part of this experiment, we have a veil which keeps us from seeing into all these different dimensions. There's actually a lot of design work that went into this human design and this experiment that we're doing, because this is considered an experiment. If the veil is dismantled for a while, people will see into all the dimensions at once. So, someone that's not really aware that there are other dimensions or that there are other things in front of them, because there are realms and realities stacked in this reality that we can't see because we just don't have the capability of seeing into this other reality. But there are like, your loved ones are like a foot off the ground in like a realm that's right here. It's not somewhere else. There's beings in this reality, just in a different one of these other realms. Well, if the veil is dismantled and everyone could see into all these different realities at once, it would, for some people, create like a disharmonious effect where they would be very afraid. Their belief system would be challenged so much so that it might be very hard for them. And then there's the people that already kind of know this stuff that would have an easier time with this. But anyway, this would merge and it would shift the perspective and belief system of everyone. So it's really all based on belief systems. It would shift the belief system, and that's the merging of that's what people consider the nexus point. And then there would be 3 timelines that have been prophesized that I hear in my sessions that would splinter out from this nexus point. The highest timeline and where you are on these timelines would also depend on your belief system. The highest timeline would be where we clean up our oceans. We really explore telepathy. We start speaking telepathically. We don't really need tools to do this. And we would start to cultivate a new level of consciousness, the new earth. Most people are that watch your show, I'm sure, are already on and so have solidified their belief system on this timeline. And then those people just keep exploring and expanding consciousness. And it's absolutely beautiful what is happening. It's happening. It's already started. Then there's the middle timeline, and you can't do any of these timelines wrong. There's growth on the whole thing. And plus, actually, the higher self has said there's a fractal of you experiencing each timeline. So there's
Mm.
actually a part of you that other people know differently. And same with me. And your role is different in those timelines. So the middle timeline would go down the same trajectory as like the other future versions of humanities, the gray extraterrestrials. And we would develop our technology, our AI technology, to be specific to the point where we want to get rid of our emotions, like our negative emotions. Why would anyone want to feel bad? That's what we have done in the past or, future past. Why would anyone want to feel bad? Why would anyone want to get sick? What we forgot before was that those are tools to help us grow. And so by cutting them out, we actually lose one of the most valuable tools, which are our emotions and sickness and challenge. Those are how people grow. So then we eventually lose our planet. We dry up all the resources and do what the Greys have done. Then the negative timeline, the people so focused on only like themselves and greed and power and just uh things in a negative way, like wanting to be right, to so much degree that you're willing to give up anything other than to be right. They go into this spiral, this loop actually, where it's actually their same soul they're fighting. They just don't know that. It's like a negative loop that they do over and over again until they can get to the point where they no longer need to be victorious and right. But they would keep playing this out and it wouldn't be on this earth. It would be too much of a negative spiral. It would just be in a different reality. So the negative timeline, according to the prophecies, according to the higher consciousness of my client, ends. But like I said, you can't do any of this wrong. This is like for our growth. This is for the Ascension program. And there's a part of you that's on the other side anyway, that watches over this, that sends you clues, that, everyone has their role to play. So there's nothing ever could happen to your soul. It's not like, you have to get it right this time around. There's so many other times, so many other chances. You are always okay, you know.
Hello, beautiful family. Quick one today. I just wanted to take a moment to thank each and every one of you that have subscribed to this channel. Your subscription means more than you know. Even though it's free, what you're doing is you're empowering a whole channel to be able to do this every single day and continue showing up in the way that we can with all of our resources on hand. Thank you for contributing to the growth of this channel, for sharing it with the people that you love, for creating a conscious movement of individuals that are seeking the sovereignty and the divinity of their soul. This is why we're here. And if you haven't already and you're enjoying this content, I invite you now to look below on that little button that says subscribe and welcome you properly to this community. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being who you are and being pure love and radiating that with everyone that you see. Back to the episode. And you asked the higher self of a recent subject, why is there a negative timeline? And they said, to teach those that are unaware to begin the awakening journey within themselves. Sometimes it takes darker realities to pull people forward to the Awakening Ascension program.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious to dive deeper into that Ascension program. Who designed it, and what else does it entail for the earth and humanity itself?
It's so interesting to understand that this earth wasn't even like that. Like, all of us are connected to the way the earth used to be. So it used to be like these beautiful fairy creatures, these beautiful shape-shifting, like ethereal beings on the planet Earth at this one time, at this most recent beginning. And Earth herself and the consciousness of Earth wanted to be part of this ascension program. Earth is like there are many other Earth planets, but so when Earth decided this, she put out a call that she wanted to be a part of the Ascension program. And there was a lot of experimentation and looking into what this would look like. And at the time, people remember that the Earth and the consciousness was like an eighth dimension, but they could see into like what the third dimension would look like, and they could almost see into it because everything is happening in this now moment. They could see into that timeline and see what it would look like. It's really interesting. So when Earth put out a call, and attracted the architect, which goes by the name of Thoth or Three, or that's what I've received in my sessions. And he came as part of the call for the Ascension program. And he said, oh, basically he's bringing the program, which is like almost, if you want to think about it, like a computer program. This is how the Ascension program goes. And so everyone agreed, the earth agreed, everyone involved agreed to this growth, but really what we're doing here. And eventually they put the pyramids set up in special grid systems. And most importantly, they developed a grid system that you would consider to be a false grid. Now, this false grid ran on like a type of energy mixed with gold. And what happens is it attracts a negative energy to it, because negative energy was important for the growth and for the Ascension program. But Earth agreed to do this, and the inhabitants, everyone that comes into this reality understands what they're doing here before they get here. And so the pyramids are really interesting because they do go along this grid system, not only the ley lines, but this grid system that has been set up because it's filtering in specific codes needed for this Ascension program. When Earth does reach the pinnacle of ascension, or prepare to actually make this big jump, all the pyramids, all the grid systems will light up. And in fact, all the grid systems within our physical bodies will light up as well. We have grid systems very connected to the Earth's grid systems. All these things will light up in tandem, and then we will make that final jump. When this happens, I don't know, but I've heard a lot about it in my sessions, and they just keep coming and talking about this.
You've also said that we each have clues that we bring ourselves in order to help trigger deep ancient memories. And I feel like almost for you now, you're leaving yourself clues through the clients that come work with you to bring together a greater tapestry of a story that's emerging that needs to be uncovered for humanity. What is that story that you're beginning to uncover and some of those clues that led you there?
Oh my gosh. For me, my clues, I think, well, everyone gives themselves clues. So it's basically how much you find and how much you've hid from yourself really makes an interesting life because you're the one that hid all these clues. And I've hid myself so many clues. And the purpose is that you don't just receive all this information all at once. You go through different levels and then you're ready and you'll receive more and more and more. As much
It's
as
an
I like,
initiation.
yeah, it's an initiation process. This is also like an initiation program. The more you get curious about yourself, the universe responds as a reflection and gets curious about you. And you start this initiation program and you start receiving clues, maybe synchronicities, and these all mean something. It means you're on the right path. You're going to keep receiving more and more clues, and you just follow them. And it's really teaching you about yourself, who you really are, what you're doing here. But I've sent myself a lot of clues, just like things I've been afraid about, or um, because your fears are some of the best clues you could send yourself. But people have other clues like their eye color, their birthmarks, their, even blood type. It all has meaning to them. And you can find out um, the your soul's blueprint just by looking at the rings of your iris. I mean, when you're talking to somebody else, the light behind your eyes is being projected into their soul, and it's delivering messages about where their soul has been, their soul is connected to, why they're here on earth. You don't realize there's so much communication like this when you're in the presence of another person, but the light behind your eyes that's actually projecting that, and the color therapy that's coming from the color of your eyes also means something for another soul. So it's very fascinating. And I feel like we're just scratching the surface of all these clues, but essentially you can use anything, any emotion, any feeling, any, part of yourself and just explore it. Sit quietly with yourself and just see what feelings come up,
Mm,
basically.
yeah. And I know you've said that there's an energy behind the scenes working with you at all times that's also helping bring in certain stories, certain different threads that connect here and there. What is the recent pattern in these clues that you've left that, when we talk about this greater story for humanity that includes things like Atlantis, now more recently, Avalon, which I knew nothing about when I started reading your book, what is that greater story that is emerging?
Yeah, the greater story is that I think that we're just all in this together. We're all here for a reason. We're all, um, especially this time period, regaining this ancient knowledge. But it's funny because it's like every single thing you're interested in or searching for, it comes back to you at the right time. You Anything you desire is also searching for you. So I think I it's I never knew anything about Avalon either. I didn't even think I ever wanted I don't choose what the higher consciousness is going to have me write about. And I feel like I have done this so many times before, at least they told me this, or it comes through other sessions with people who don't know one another, that I'm just doing this once again. I'm uncovering this information, transcribing it because I'm not the one writing it. I'm just transcribing it for people to dissect and learn from. And I've done this so many times before. And I think this is a really great, exciting time because people aren't being killed like they were last time. It was just really easy to kill the messenger many, many times. And most of these messengers have these deep phobias or fears because of past times when they have been killed for just sharing information like this. Um, I I find it fascinating that things have a way to come back to me. like information that I've lost in the past or thought I lost, it makes its way back to me in my current lifetime. And I know this happens for everyone. I mean, many times people, when they're under hypnosis, they'll realize that where they live is significant. Like perhaps they lost a place where they lived and now they're right back in the same place. They just didn't know this consciously. So often people move back into their house or the same land or the same town that they lived in previously. Everything is a clue. I'm living in the closest place to where I died in another lifetime. I just thought I wanted to live somewhere warm. I just moved to the Florida Keys because, I hate the cold weather and I just wanted to live on the ocean. And it turns out I was supposed to come here because of the energy from Atlantis, because civilizations leave an imprint in water. And so by living close to the water here, I'm able to subconsciously call this information back to me. And the same with everyone. Everyone moves to a place that's supposed to teach them something about themselves. It's no coincidence, even if it's just for a little while. And the energy in cities are really interesting because there's a really interesting, powerful energy in city centers. It almost like produces a type of chaos in a sense, and it helps people grow in different levels. There's so much to learn. It's exciting.
Yeah. What did Alice want to share about Avalon and her story?
Oh, wow. So Alice I didn't even know I would have a client named Alice, but she turned out to be a real person who actually lived in the Middle Ages, and we found her too. And
I looked her up as well.
she lived in the Middle Ages, and she was connected to this information from Avalon that you couldn't talk about at the time. People were killed, they were murdered just for talking about these ancient ways. And in Alice's family, they knew about these ancient ways and they had to keep it very secret. But she just wanted people to understand that you could connect with these ancient ways just by returning to nature, by doing really simple things, by communicating with the natural environment around you and understanding that there are different realms to our reality. In Alice's family line, they communicated with like the fairy realm, and they actually received a lot of benefits because they understood the fairy realm in different ways than we do, and they understood that if you were respectful with nature, that the fairy realm would work with you. If you if you respected them greatly and you came about it in a very respectful way, they could bless you and do many things and help you with many things. And Alice's family understood that what people call fairy dust is actually like because fairies are very elemental in nature, they consider themselves to be birthed from the earth. They don't consider themselves to be extraterrestrial, or at least the ones that have communicated through Alice. They consider themselves to be part of the elements. If you think about an element evolving, it would turn into something as it evolves. So they consider themselves birth from the earth. Well, anyway, when they experience intense joy, it sparks like a dust. And so, what people in the ancient times would do that were very connected to this realm is they would work with them and ask for them to sprinkle them with their fairy dust, which is sprinkling them with intense joy. And you could actually receive blessings, activations, and people can do this now. They just, can ask for this. Asking is always something that helps. And you can receive the sprinkling of this fairy dust, which would bless you and help you in your life on many different levels. But Alice's family were also connected with some of humanity's treasure, which humanity doesn't really even know about. I mean, there's treasure that has been hidden from us just to keep it safe. But these treasures really are Well, basically, any civilization that has ancient that has developed themselves to a particular point where it could teach other civilizations something always has an artifact that never is destroyed. And so humanity has many artifacts that haven't been destroyed that teach us something about rebuilding a civilization or teach us something about the true nature of consciousness. And we have some of those that have survived, even before Atlantis. Um, and those have been hidden right now, but those will be resurfacing soon.
Which one of those ancient artifacts has come up in your awareness recently?
Many, but I would say the one that really intrigues me is the Holy Grail because my one of my clients who was just so such an amazing hypnosis subject, and I work with her a lot because she just has no filter, and I can even find out, I found out her name in the past life. Just so great, easy, and very clear. She remembers that the Knights Templar secured this artifact, and they understood that it came what it was basically, and it's not even when she traced it back to find out where its origins were, it didn't even really come from this particular realm. So, um, the Holy Grail seems so fascinating because basically what it would teach people is just that they have everlasting life, but not in this plane. It's just that everyone has everlasting life on the other side. And every different realms have another side, which is just what I think we're headed for with this Ascension program. It's our other side when people leave this life and they go back to the other side, see this really vibrant earth. Everything looks like brand new and beautiful, and the consciousness is so beautiful, and you speak telepathically. Anyway, you always have a life over there. Everyone does. We're very connected over there. But when you're using something like this, like the Holy Grail, it would show you this. It would activate you to understand you're always connected. You are a divine being that's could never die and shows you your true nature, basically.
Hmm. So your subject that was bringing through Alice in this past lifetime, she's part of the royal family, royal bloodline, and in one moment she escapes and runs into the forest and finds an ancient stone circle. Basically, steps through it, and it's like a portal that transfers her into another dimension. Where did she end up?
Oh my gosh. She ended up back into like the whole fairy realm. The like a time that some people call this realm Avalon. There's many different levels to Avalon, it seems like. There's this fairy realm. There's other uh, places, like in the UK, that considered it to be Avalon. Then there's like the kingdom of like Arthur, considered to be like Avalon. So it's almost like a consciousness. Like, so she tapped into this other lifetime she was having where she was basically like a fairy creature and met this being that considered himself to be part of the Tuatha De Danann. I never heard of that group, and so it was interesting to learn about this type of being and his role to play in humanity even. Um, but it was so interesting that you could go through like a stone circle to end up into this place. And I know that people can tap into other realities and other parts of their consciousness when they go to a place like Egypt, even in some of these places, because the energy is so heightened there. Or they could go into one of these stone circles if they understood how to use it and tap in.
Are there any current stone circles or something similar now on Earth that exists as these portals that can take us to these dimensions?
Yeah, anybody could probably do it. I mean, if you understood how to do it, but it makes it a lot easier if there's any thinning of the veil. Like if you went during an equinox or a solstice, during those times of in between is when the veil is thinner. So you if you went between day and night or in the morning before dawn, you could just work with those stone circles and basically magnify your vibration and just get into a very focused state. You might be able to do it. But especially if you have if you have that bloodline, or if you've had a past life in any of these places, that would activate your spiritual bloodline, because it's not just depending on your physical DNA. That anytime you've had a past life or have had an experience in a different lifetime, that's considered your spiritual bloodline. So that would activate as well. Your consciousness is so much more vast than just your physical body.
So what is activating for people right now with regards to this spiritual bloodline?
So what's happening right now is people are starting to kind of like uh, tap in to the other versions of themselves a lot easier than they ever could before, because their spiritual DNA, whatever you want to call that, their spiritual bloodline is being activated right now with all the light codes that are hitting the planet. So what the higher self has said is to get a little of these light codes, not only put your feet on the earth as much as you can and ground, because you're receiving information from the inner earth, and the inner earth is so powerful, but to get a little unfiltered sunlight, because these codes, this information is coming through your unfiltered eyes, activating your pineal gland, sending information, and just becoming a messenger and starting to tune into these other experiences that you have had, because these experiences, in a sense, are just becoming aware of these, can activate these dormant memories within you, and it can actually help you be more of a magical creature.
Hmm. And at one point, you asked the higher self, "This, why are you showing me all of this?" And it said, "This is a sacred healing of the collective wound of those connected to that ancient time." So I would really love to hone in. What is that wound that we're collectively healing from when we listen to these stories, when we start activating that multidimensional aspect of ourselves that can remember? What are we healing from all of this?
We are really healing not only that witch wound, where so many of us that were connected to these ancient ways or worked with nature have suffered from, but we're reconnecting with the rebalancing of the divine masculine and the divine feminine. It's like a way to call this information back to ourselves. And just by, hearing about it or reading something like this, it's enough to trigger the deep memories to bring it back into our consciousness, because many of us have been tormented and felt ashamed even for working with the earth, or killed, or worse. And so it's time to release these wounds and understand that really these were for, there are many purposes, but one of them was for our soul's evolution, for the growth. And it's time not only to forgive others, but to forgive ourselves, and to understand that we can rebalance and through just awareness. And I know that's what the higher consciousness does with all my books. They when they write it, they set it up in a way so they make it, I know this because I've asked, and they make it a way so people don't have to experience these things personally. They're just codes set up and triggers. So when they just read the information, it's working on a very deep level. And people often report that they just read it, they feel different, they feel like something healed, they can't put a finger on it, they don't know what happened to them, but they are different after they read the book. And I know they do that for all the books that they write through me, because I'm not the writer. I'm the scribe over and over again. That's what I do.
Hmm. There's also something very healing about, especially for me, like when I watch a movie that is either like science fiction or like a Marvel movie, where you're like connecting to these incredible potentials, in humans depicted as superheroes, or whether we're talking about the fairies or we're talking about the dragons in Game of Thrones, like it's healing in a way because you realize the most healing thing that we can do for ourselves is tap into our imagination. And when we don't allow ourselves to imagine, then we are in a way limiting all our potential. So even just reading, parts of your book last night, like I had crazy dreams last night. I met a dolphin shapeshifter on a boat. I don't know where I was going, and this dolphin would like, I don't even know. I also watched Moana the other day, so that could have influenced. But I wanted to ask, there was a point in the story where the Knights Templar come in, and we would know this group as, some sort of secret society that would guard, ancient knowledge. But in this story, they come in and they're also having a higher purpose regarding, the mystical, sacred knowledge from these ancient civilizations and these realms that we've been talking about in this conversation. So what has your greater understanding been about with the Knights Templar?
So, according to my clients under hypnosis, they were originally set to just guard this royal family, that this royal family had this like wizard that was counseling them with all these ancient truths that had been passed down to this particular, I'm just calling him a wizard, but I'm not sure exactly what they were. Maybe a druid understood these principles. And so this particular wizard was teaching some of this information, the sacred, powerful information, because knowledge is power to this royal family, but was also helping the people guarding them. So the wizard taught the Knights Templar at the time this information, and it totally changed how the Knights Templar went about their ways. It really shifted what they were all about, and then they really understood their purpose, which was to safeguard these sacred artifacts. And so the Knights Templar really took these ancient teachings and safeguarded them as well. So they kept this knowledge of how to, like how to work with the elements, how to make things like monatomic gold, how to, you know, how to basically keep this. It was just keeping the knowledge, the ancient ways alive, and understanding these principles and how to receive more knowledge. It wasn't just that knowledge. They opened themselves up like a tuning fork. I mean, they had many practices for becoming more in tune with the elements and more in tune with their higher selves. Like even just they used to do these practices where they would put their feet in the water because they understood water was a conductor, and they would be in the water when the sun was going down and the moon was coming up. It was an amazing time to receive messages, and they would do this and many other practices that they would keep and that they would practice. But the Knights Templar were tasked basically with safeguarding these treasures. And then my clients remember them hiding it. And I've never seen the movie Oak Island, but they took it to this place in Nova Scotia. But when my clients look at where this treasure is buried now, they see water over it. So, most of it. So they don't, I I'll have to check out that show, but it's not like, "Oh, here it is," right there. Probably they need to move if they haven't found it. I don't know, but, um, it's interesting because the way they hid the treasure, I think is very from what I've heard, is similar to how they hid the treasure, or they talked about the treasure in Oak Island, and probably because people do know that they hid it in layers, with the most important, valuable treasure buried miles deep, miles deep. But what's interesting when I was really investigating through people's subconscious memories is that the most important treasure is knowledge. The most important treasure comes in the form of these books, and it carries the knowledge. So it's at some point we will have a record of everything that has been hidden from us. and an understanding not just of our past, but of how powerful the human body, the human spirit really is. And in the rest of the cosmos, when these other beings speak through my clients, they will say that the most powerful being is the awakened human, not some other being who's developed like all these different skills. It's the awakened human, the human that's like Shiva, Buddha. That's considered the most powerful being in the universe because the depth at which they could harness their emotional body is the most powerful being in the universe. So that is where we're headed in this golden age, to sit back on our powerful, almost like everyone has a throne in a sense, because we're able to fully embody that. And that's where we're headed at some point.
Wow. What does it mean to harness our emotional body?
It really means that every limitation we possess comes from our belief systems. If we were to unravel these belief systems one at a time, we could start awakening more of this magic within us. To harness your emotional body is to understand that our emotions act as the gateway through the universe. To really harness our emotions gives us like a golden ticket to like source itself. Um, Not only that, but just working with our physical chakra systems, our energetic chakra systems mixed with our emotions can just have profound effects over the next generations to come. But really unraveling who we are and being very curious about who we are and the designs and the clues we've sent ourselves down to like the colors of our eyes can help you start the journey. Just being curious about yourself unlocks that initiation program, basically.
Mm. What do you feel are the most common belief systems that keep humanity playing small?
That we aren't worthy of something, like that we don't deserve something, or we're just not good enough. I feel like that is the most harmful thing that we keep perpetuating, and we keep trying to prove to ourselves that we're not good enough, and it's actually harming us as like a collective. And that something is only available for one person, it means it's not available for something else, which isn't true at all. I mean, it's basically what we're creating on in our internal reality. But we come to master this and we come to learn that we are extremely valuable. I mean, we're so loved and we are worthy just by being here. We're magical, but we're the ones telling ourselves we're not, basically.
I love the practice that you shared from the Templars about putting our barefoot feet in the water during sunset while the moon is coming up and shining. And that's very practical to do even today, if we live close to a body of water. What are some other practices that you uncovered from the Templars and from these ancient practices that we could bring back into our daily life that can really help us become that awakened self, that master of our emotions, and become more connected with ourselves?
Well, for the Templars, exactly, they had interesting practices where they would sit cross legged with their bare feet on the ground, connected to earth, and they would put the palms of their hands on the earth. And what would happen is it would create a circuit where they would tune into the heartbeat of the earth. It was a different way of grounding where they would use like their spine, their tailbone, and their body basically to really connect and ground to in a deeper level. And then they would understand the messages from the earth herself. It was interesting because my client was like, I can't believe I didn't know all these things, until the Templars who were working with her taught her. And she thought, I can't believe it. This is so magical. They would do practices where they would read the stars and they would see different stars light up. It would help them go about their journey when they were going by boat. Um, they would always incorporate seaweed into their diet, or at least when they were working on this particular island, they said kelp and seaweed had miraculous effects, or is this type of salt had miraculous effects over the human body, actually would rejuvenate them. And they always used that. They just talked about how this particular kelp was so valuable for people to ingest, like a type of salt. And they did like an alchemical process with monatomic gold. And my clients that remember being the Knights Templar, it was interesting. They like would burn off, I guess, like a liquid they put in there, and then this powder would say that I don't know. It was kind of confusing, but they made this special powder that they could ingest and they wouldn't need food. They could survive for a long time just on this powder, but it would revitalize their whole body. And basically, um, it's like this salt. So it kept coming back to like minerals were really important for them. They always took the time to be alone in nature. It was that what my clients remember, and they would, always keep themselves, like, physically fit as well. That was really important to them in my clients' memories, is they would just keep not only their physical body, well, but they didn't eat too many, animal proteins with too much of, they talked about not too much salt, like, with that because it would dull your senses, but they would ingest these minerals, which wouldn't, which would revitalize your senses. So that was interesting. I mean, there was so many things that they did, but I found those particular type things fascinating. They would also talk about, and all the ancient ways talked about, like the Merkaba that we have. Like we have two triangles, just like in Egypt, there's like a pyramid above and then there's a pyramid below. Everything's above and below when people remember, these things. But we have an above pyramid on our body and one below, and a kind of our center point is our navel. And if you can even focus on these spinning triangles, that this can actually help our energetic bodies. People in the ancient days remember spinning. Spinning helps release, like rebalance your emotional or your energetic bodies. Just so many practices. I only put as many, what I could in this book, but they did a lot of things like that. It was mostly communicating with the earth, but anybody could really develop a new relationship with the earth if they just go in their environment, wherever they live. Even there's just like a plant in your house, that's the only nature you have, and just develop a relationship with it where you start to communicate it with it because it has a really powerful consciousness. And what starts to happen if you go into your area and you develop a relationship, the nature in your area responds to you. It'll show you that it's working with you, and you'll see that sometimes like a weed will pop up that will have a cure or whatever, or a health benefit to whatever it is that you are potentially struggling with. So the natural environment is very, very powerful, and people are being asked to, reconnect with it.
Hmm. There was one of your clients that worked with a man from the Knights Templar in one of the regressions who had a relationship with a woman from Avalon. And you said that this was almost like a template for the relationships starting now.
Mhm.
How so?
Oh my gosh, it was so beautiful. So they had a really spiritual relationship. They didn't have children in that life that she saw. Their relationship was a very like spiritual and romantic relationship where they rebalanced each other, where they were working on themselves with each other, with the help of each other. She said this type of was a template that's being remembered by people, this rebalancing, this understanding that each aspect has such a beautiful balance that's being rekindled in the new relationships that are starting to form. People are starting to really start to enter into this beautiful type of relationship again, and that's what people see in the future is are these beautiful relationships where it's more of a romantic relationship and a rebalancing. It's
Mm.
interesting.
And what's the role there with these types of relationships? You said in this example they didn't have kids, but where does the next generation, let's say, of procreation step in if we're having these types of relationships?
Well, she was saying, especially this client was talking about for her in her future that she will meet someone that will rekindle this. It's mostly like reawakening this soul DNA or soul blueprint that people have or remembering like this is why it's been so hard for them to be in relationships because they have been searching for this type of love again. But it is amazing because the people that do enter into this new template that do have children, it'll be an amazing experience for their children. A lot of children that wanted to be a part of all this remembrance have chosen like this marker of coming in after 2013 or on 2013 because that's just a total clue and a sign because 13 is an extremely powerful number. It's like an in between time. So these children have to be born by have to have at least one parent that allows them the potential to believe in like fairies and the fairy realm because they're tasked with really bridging this gap between these consciousness. And so has a lot of children that will come from a result of these types of unions that are ready to like bring this new template back into this beautiful golden age is what people see for that
Mm.
timeline.
Yeah, and back to the fairies there. Um, I heard and I read in the book that the word fairy comes from pharaoh.
Yeah.
So what's the connection with ancient Egypt and the fairy realm?
Oh my gosh, it's all connected. It's it's interesting because even, like, the pharaohs would be buried with honey in their tomb, and honey is a very sacred tool that people understood in ancient times. You can actually predict the future using honey. So honey carries the blueprint of, like, our history in it, in the honey. Within honey is wisdom, and so they could tap in and receive this information because it's written into the honey. And, people are being asked to work with honey again in that way to understand that there is coded information in, like, raw honey that you would find, in your area, something that hasn't been tampered with, but bees and these, you know, put it into the honey, and it's there for anyone to work with it. Same with many leaves. Leaves contain ancient information that someone could tune into, so these live foods people can ingest with the understanding that it contains a lot of information if they work with it in that way. But, um, in a lot of the pharaohs understood the connection to these other realms, the ones that still had access to this ancient information. Some pharaohs also were like a result of the survivors from Atlantis, which they were trying to preserve that particular genetic bloodline because they still had the ability to tune into certain things in a different way. And they were um, connected to certain extraterrestrial races that had done a lot of hybridizations programs before the end days of Atlantis. So, I mean, it's everything is connected. Everything. When you go searching to see if anything is connected, it's all connected. Everything.
Yeah. It's a tapestry. And another thing that was connected there is, last week we had a conversation with a woman that, she's a channeler, but she channels also, certain celebrity figures that were alive and then now passed away. One of those being Princess Diana. And she comes up in the book as well, because when they talk about this bloodline and this knowledge of the crystals, she came up, in that story. So what was her role in understanding the power of the crystals and her specific bloodline that led her there?
It's really interesting because there is a genetic royal bloodline that has the ability to tap into these crystals that can read this information very easily. And so they have different abilities, I guess, consciously that other people that are not connected genetically would have it more of like a soul connection that would have to be reawakened or activated. But it was interesting to hear because I didn't know much about Princess Diana that um, the higher self even said, listen to everything she says. Like she had a lot of awareness and she was receiving a lot of messages. And in her bloodline, her genetic bloodline, she had special abilities. And she gave birth to her son on the solstice. And I Googled it. I was like, she did. It was really interesting. So, um, I that genetic bloodline is still floating through our genetic DNA, which is really interesting. So some people have abilities to tap into these special crystals and read them and use them genetically.
What's the origin of that bloodline that we're talking about?
Oh, yeah, that's a hybridization program. They were considered the gift of the stars, is basically this one particular hybridization genetic program. Most of the time, they are Rh negative, and many of them have like greenish eyes or reddish hair. And that combination of reddish hair, green eyes, especially when it comes to astigmatism, which is actually an ancient ability to see into different dimensions because all disabilities are actually hidden abilities. And
Mm.
astigmatism is an old ability to see into things differently and mixed with Rh negative blood. It was just one of these programs that was just has comes with certain abilities that people can still actually use. Pretty powerful bloodline.
Hmm. And what are some of those abilities that are coming back now for every bloodline or for every person?
For everyone is just the ability to harness magic again, to be able to use our energetic blueprint, to understand our bodies in a different way, to really understand manifestation and how we are our own healers. For a lot of people, they're starting to remember that they could actually heal with the palms of their hands. I mean, anyone could tune into this. Anyone could become a channel and become their own healer. For a lot of people, they're starting to remember that they can work with herbs, they can work with their natural environment, they can start developing a relationship and receive messages from plants and actually be a healer, be their own shaman again. I mean, there's so much that we have like the ability to really harness and use right now for everyone. And these activations are free, so people don't want, other people to talk about that, but they are. They could just go get some unfiltered sunlight or tune into nature and or just get curious about themselves. When they're waking up in the morning, they could stay in that deep theta state when they still have access to their dream and just lay there, receive messages. It's, something people could do for free. And really, there's so much, and I feel excited about the time period that we're in because so many of us have been killed and, like tortured for sharing this information. But, we're here, we're back again, doing this again. And, we're not being tortured and killed like we were in the past.
Hmm. And I'm curious because this book is almost very recent. It came out, not a few weeks ago, not even. And it's a whole journey, I imagine, putting these books together because, as you said, like your name's on the cover, but you're not necessarily the one writing it. You're like guiding all of these clients to tell the story and bring it together in a cohesive fashion. What was your, I guess, like, light bulb moment when you're putting these stories together? Like, what did you realize about yourself? What did you realize about where we are right now in humanity, where we're headed? Was there any light bulb moment for you? I imagine there was, but I'll open the space for that.
I love this question. Well, I think when I really understood, I mean, it's funny because I, I still have this like healthy sense of skepticism. Although I understand that there's no way that these things could keep happening, and I don't doubt like what I'm doing here anymore because it wouldn't even matter. It would still happen. But my mom is my editor. She's actually an editor and a really good editor. So my mom edits the books. She doesn't want her name on there. Um, but she's the one who edits my books. And when I was working with her on this book, she only got to chapter 4 with me as we read it first together before she edits, the spelling. It activated her so much that she started seeing these like circles in the corners of her eyes. And my mom is just an editor. She's not like spiritual or anything like that. She's just like, she takes her work seriously. Like, I'm going to edit the spelling. So all of a sudden, she started seeing something was happening. And it was like these circles in the corner of her eyes. So she went to her eye doctor, and her eye doctor said, your retinas might be detaching. Better, get all these, scans. We better check you just in case. And my mom thought, oh my gosh, maybe I'm like having an issue, but it only happens when I'm working on Sarah's new book. So it's a weird coincidence. So she gets checked out and finds out her eyes are completely fine. And then she realizes it as we continue that she's actually starting to see fairies. So
Oh,
my mom has shifted since the book and can see fairies now. So that was pretty
what?
cool. That was a very interesting experience, and they come when whenever she was working on this book, sure enough, they would show up and they would be in the corners of her eyes, like, we're here. And it was interesting. But for me, I feel like for me personally, I feel like this is just so fun. I've only scratched the surface of what I'm really hoping to accomplish this life. I would like to learn every single thing. I just like can't wait. Like, what are they going to show me next? It's so cool. I mean, I just find this time that we're living in so exciting. And I'm excited. I love sharing and talking about it. And um, I can't wait to find out what's next and what kind of new ancient truths have they been withholding from us that will resurface through my next client.
Yeah. And I feel like that's why I resonate so much with you because we share the same passion, curiosity, and almost like zest for life. And, I could even imagine the people that are tuning into us also share that. And that's why they're aligning to this conversation. I'm curious, Sarah, have you ever seen a fairy?
No, no, I
Not yet. Not
have
yet. Not yet.
not yet, but not that I'm aware of. I mean, like the higher self has said, anytime you see like a little flash of light, or, sometimes you can see like a deer will just show up. It could be the fairy kingdom just presenting a deer, but really it's like a bunch of fairies. Or you go into nature and you feel really sleepy. or things like that. But I don't know. I've never seen like any of the stuff that they talk about. I just, I want to, just not yet. I haven't. But there is in the book, the higher self or this one being put in a spell that people could use to see fairies. I haven't done this yet, but apparently it is very powerful and you can actually use the spell in the book and see into that realm.
What chapter is that?
I don't remember the actual number chapter, but Merlin talks about it.
The Merlin chapter.
Mhm.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Sarah, we end every show with a segment called the final trio, which are little just questions that we ask at the end. But before that, where would you send people to connect with you, with your work? Where can they get the book? I really highly recommend reading it. It'll activate some, as you said, maybe you'll start seeing fairies. I don't know. I haven't yet, but where would you send people to connect further with you?
Well, you can go to my website, theholistichuhypnotist.com. I really enjoy doing these in-person 3-day workshops because I find that to be incredibly healing for people. And not only that, but people are often isolated and really looking to meet a tribe again. So I love doing these 3-day workshops. I love it when they tell me, oh, a bunch of us just moved in together or we travel the world together. And so I have a bunch of those coming up because my private sessions book up so quickly and I don't have anything for a long time now. But you can come see me and do one of these 3-day workshops. So theholistichuhypnotist.com. And if you want to communicate with me directly, the best way is to go to my YouTube channel because I'm the one that is answering everyone on my YouTube channel. And that's Sarah Breskman.
Same.
Yeah, Sarah Breskman Cosme Hypnosis. It's that's where I post like some of these sessions and the session clips, and you can actually hear the actual session that way and get an idea for what this wisdom that's coming through.
Yeah, and most people will be watching this on YouTube, so we'll connect them with your YouTube channel, and also, we'll also both be reading the comment section. Really excited to hear if you have any fairy stories, any healing stories, whatever it is. We always love to hear that. And we asked this question called the time capsule question at the end, and I asked you this before, but now I kind of wanted to like shift it up a little bit and ask you, in what ways is the Sphinx of the Giza Plateau a time capsule for humanity?
Oh my gosh. No matter what anyone takes from the Sphinx, it's still there. It's still a time capsule. There are codes that are just emanating off of the Sphinx because of uh the the way it was built and what it's connected to. And you can tune into these codes just by quieting your mind, putting your feet on the ground, your bare feet, and just allowing the codes to go through your eyes into your third eye, and it will work with your own chakra systems basically. A lot of people don't really understand that these things are still there because of this energy in the grid system in which they were built. And so you can use yourself like an instrument and tune into all this information. The light codes emanate off of any of these sacred places about 1.5 feet off the ground. And you just go and you tune in. You just tune in and you can find out this information. The Sphinx apparently records our history. It shows the secrets and the everything, the stories of everything that has ever happened, and basically can also predict the future as well. So, yeah, the Sphinx is an amazing time capsule and it's broadcasting out to other realms information, and that's coming back through the Sphinx and it's carried through the ley lines and communicating with different realms, even like civilizations that people consider to be in the inner earth and things like that.
Have you ever received any prediction from the Sphinx?
Yeah, I have. The Sphinx itself holds the story of what we're doing here. And there used to be, when people tune in and they're looking deep in this underneath the Sphinx, they've seen that there used to be like a scrying lens, like a black lens, and you would look into it and you would be able to, like a looking glass, you'd be able to see like information about the ages. But one of the most important things is like the true story of what we're doing here, and it's always the same thing, a battle between light and dark. Yeah. But
And the light always shines brighter.
the truth, the truth is that the light always wins in the end. It always wins. That's why we're here. That's why humanity's here, because there are future versions of ourselves, right? If we were wiped out, we wouldn't be here now. We are here because of this fundamental truth. The light wins in the end.
Yes. The second question I had for you is, if you were to encourage humanity to go out and discover one ancient artifact that would shift things into our highest timeline, what would it be?
The Sphinx that's in the four corners of the United States.
Which one?
The Sphinx that's in the four corners of the United States.
What is that?
Underneath that Sphinx.
Tell us more about that.
Would shift humanity.
The Sphinx under the four corners.
No, the Sphinx that's located in the four corners of the United States. It's just hidden. And you wouldn't know it's a Sphinx structure.
Somewhere through the U.S. Any hint as to what state?
It's just located in between. It's like located in the four corners, like there, but just hidden. Like it just looks like it's nothing, but it's an ancient sacred artifact. It's the Sphinx structure.
Interesting. That's a little riddle for people.
You want them to go there, like right now.
Indiana Jones style. Get your little hat on and
I mean, that would shift the whole world right now if they could go somewhere.
Sure.
An ocean, because all the information from all of the civilizations is within the water.
I love that. The last question I had for you is regarding this work with hypnosis and your work with Dolores Cannon's method. What is your greatest understanding of what the subconscious really is?
You ask like the best questions.
I got you.
The truth about the subconscious is that when you use anyone and you go to their subconscious, you're reaching the same place. We're all connected. We're all actually one. We're all actually God. We are all source. You just reach it through one person under hypnosis, but it's the same source.
All final messages lead to all is one. That's literally the biggest truth.
It is.
Thank you for ending it there. And Sarah, it's such an honor to, hold space for you in this way. We met a year and a half ago in the most synchronistic way, and you're a beautiful soul. Thank you so much for the work that you do. You literally light up, even if you're talking about the most complex subjects, you bring it down to earth in such a, light way, but also very digestible and understandable. So I love getting to unravel the mysteries of the universe together with you. I know we'll continue this collaboration many, many years down the line. And I appreciate you so, so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you so, so much. Thank you so much for everything you're doing and bringing this information and allowing it to be easily accessible for people. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.